Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of Animal Kingdom Season 6, Episode 7. This is the big aftermath of the heist. Now, we're going to do our best in this video to get you guys a table that doesn't have music, that's like a little bit too loud. We're going to try to find a good seat for everybody. We try to be gracious and bombard the poor restaurant employee who is just there trying to do their job and Pope's showing up early.
Listen, Pope just wants to make sure that this is the perfect date. If he's going to have any sort of shot getting Amy back, he's got to make sure that it's perfect. You know, he doesn't know. He hasn't dated in a while.
Pope, listen, Pope, you need somebody needs to give you a hug, like an actual hug, and not whatever Smurf was doing in this episode, which we will get to later on down the road. But before we go further, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, do it. You know, we're here every single week talking about Animal Kingdom. There is still a lot to go in this final season. I feel like we are at that point now where things are really starting to build up out of control.
Also, follow us over on Instagram, Matt and Jess TV. We have some new pictures up over there. Fifi, my bun, she's got a new little tent over there. So if you're interested in cute little bunny stuff, that's going on over there right now.
We need cute little bunny stuff instead of focusing on the fact that like Pope is royally effed in so many different ways at this point. They just can't even have a date without Detective Thompson showing up and rummaging through his car again.
Okay, listen, I have a theory,
All right.
and I don't know if it's going to pan into anything because of how we saw things play out in this episode. There was one point that I was like, okay, my theory maybe not going to work out, but here we go. And I've seen some other people are circling the same theory, so it's not only mine. Okay, so what if Amy and Detective Thompson are in on this? Because there was a couple of things that were just really weird about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything that ended with Pope and Amy, it didn't end very well. And so for her to call him, I was like, okay, sure, I'll buy into that. For her to straight up invite him out to dinner, I was like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No,
Like,
it was weird.
It was weird. I was like, okay, that's a little bit much. What is it that she wants out of this? And there was a period of time where, you know, he was rolling around with Detective Thompson pretending to be Taylor's mom. You go, oh, where's my kid? I'm like, okay, you know, Pope fell for this. That's fine. He's trying to give back to the community and this has popped off. So he's decided to go with this. Where Amy calls and then she's getting really weird about this date where all of a sudden she's like, I don't think I can go. I'm not feeling great about it anymore. It's like, you asked him. Why are you getting so nervous, Amy? Then they go on this date.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's like, I'm here for forgiveness. I want to be forgiven for my part in all of this and, you know, my judgment on you. Pup's like, you don't have anything to be sorry for. You didn't do anything. And that last scene where they're all in the parking lot, Detective Thompson shows up and she's like, hey, I just happened to be here because my phone is missing. The exchange between her and Amy was a little bit off, where it was kind of like, hey. I'm like, ooh, that's a little familiar. What is going on here? The moment that I was like, okay, my theory might just be a big bag of nothing is when Detective Thompson was checking out her license plate. I'm like, okay, maybe this is just the setup that she's going to then go to Amy and set Amy up to do this.
I think there is a good chance of one or the other. Like I definitely think that. Like I thought maybe the same thing with the license plate. The one thing I caught on, and I didn't catch all the different clues that you were bringing up when I was watching, but the one that I did was her on the phone basically being like, I can't do it. Oh, never mind. I guess I'll go, even though I'm the one who set this up. Like I either had one or two thoughts. It was either like, okay, yeah, like you said, maybe Detective Thompson got to her early and she was having some sort of guilt about going through with it and she wanted to sort of back away. I mean, we saw Taylor didn't really want to do this either and she pushed him into it. Like the only other thing I could think about is maybe she was sort of remembering how exactly things ended off the last time around and she may have just been like, oh, do I really want to get involved in all of this again? Like, even though, I have something that I need to get off my chest when it comes to all of it, do I still really want to go down this road? And Amy, I have some bad news for you. If Detective Thompson is not involved in your life now, she gonna be soon, and it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's not completely unbelievable that Amy would have these second doubts and call up Pope saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I'm not sure, whatever." But we have to remember this is TV and they only have a certain amount of time in this episode. So, with that scene specifically being in there, that's the thing that really made me suspicious that she was working with Detective Thompson. She's getting pressured. She didn't want to actually go through with this. She just, it felt very purposeful for more than just she was having second thoughts, because they could have had that happen at the dinner where she could have just said in a throwaway
yeah,
line, I almost didn't come tonight. Like, I know I booked this date, but I almost didn't come tonight. To have a whole separate scene of her
yeah.
calling, I was like, okay, something really weird is going on.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be pretty meaty on some level to spend the amount of time that they did. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like I'm certainly not complaining. I like Jen Landon. Honestly, give me a million scenes featuring Pope and Amy, and the less that we have of Jay and Penny at this point, the happier that I'm going to be. So that's fine.
Well, at least we've seen that Pope is starting to figure out something is weird.
Yes.
And I think Detective Thompson really just blew it showing up looking for that phone. It was
Yeah.
so suspicious that all of a sudden she was there, like
Yep.
waiting, and he's done with this date. And all of a sudden she's like, hey, I just happen to know that you're here. It was so weird. So
Yeah.
he was acting, of course, very like Pope is being Pope.
Yeah.
Where he's like standing real close to her and watching her go by and get her phone and all that. I was just like, oh my goodness. Sean is so good in this role. I know we say this all
Yeah.
the time in these videos, but he really is. And then to watch him go home, he's now noticed the cereal
Yep.
box. And then there's the microwave, and then there's Detective Thompson being real weird. He is starting to piece things together, but is it just going to be too late?
I think the biggest problem Pope is facing here is like, it's one thing to know that something is up. It's another thing altogether to be like, what is something up for? Like, what is the purpose
Mhm.
of all of this? And I think it's gonna be really hard for this guy to like dig into like the recesses of like all these terrible things that he's like done in his brain to eventually get out Catherine Belland, which is like years old.
Absolutely. I don't know that he's going to right away make that type of connection, but the connection that maybe cops are looking into them, they've done a lot of stuff. This is,
Yeah.
I'm sure, on the back of every one of theirs mind.
Okay, we're 8 minutes in. Let's talk about Jay and Penny, and let's get really excited, everybody. Okay, here's the thing, Penny. If you're out with somebody, they don't have a red stain on their shirt, and they go away for a minute, and they come back with a red stain on their shirt, leave. I don't care if you're at a restaurant. I don't care if they say that it's ketchup. Leave. It's not worth the effort. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm out on this storyline. I have been all season. I just think that the Jay character is fascinating enough on his own when he's working with the family and trying to be the person who's like, listen, somebody needs to be in charge here. I'm trying to get our finances in order. I'm trying to get our jobs in order. Him trying to be the new Smurf is more than enough. And it's more than interesting than what is going on over here. It just feels like every season Jay has to have a love interest. And while they're trying to push it that she's this new special love interest that's like the one kind of thing, we've kind of seen Jay in this spot already, even with her being like, oh yeah, my sister is dealing with addiction. Oh yeah, my mom is. Okay, you've had connections with other women before. This isn't new.
Okay, here is how Animal Kingdom can pay off some of this sort of stuff, at least for me. We know that Penny has to be at least a reasonably competent person to get that job that she has in the first place. Like, you don't work at a law firm if you are an idiot. Like, so she is smart. She can piece together that something's a little bit weird with Jay. Jay can be very, very reckless with his random love interests. We have seen this time and time again. If she ends up like having some sort of role to play in his downfall and it is set up in some sort of like smart and interesting manner, I would be okay with that. I do not need to see another whirlwind love story for Jay where she ends up getting killed or like something else happens in that vein, because then it's just like, all right, here we go again. But if you guys are gonna spend a full episode watching her like throw axes and get to like Jay's random restaurant so he can go and beat up a guy for showing up late, pay it off. That is all I am asking.
Okay, let's talk about the Craig stuff.
Okay.
So Nick got taken. Ren ended up sort of having a big drop come in. Some other guys are like, hey, we know that you have a big drop coming in. We're just going to take your son and we'll make an exchange, the drugs for your son sort of thing. That scene with Ren was really terrifying. Watching her like holding onto that truck, driving away. Oh my goodness. So this has brought Craig into the fold where he's just like, no, I'm not having that. You're not giving up anything. No one's having this happen to you. I'm going to get my son. And he calls Darren. Now, we know that him and Darren have not been getting along lately, to say the least.
Yeah.
But watching these two go in there together and really have each other's backs, they finally get to Nick, and you have Craig being like, get Nick out of here. Darren takes a bunch of bullets to his armor for him because he's like, no, not you don't get to take this guy out. And Darren's like, all right, well, if this means that maybe I'm gonna get shot, then that's the way it's gonna be. Like, there was really a bonding in this very intense situation, and it all really paid off really well at the end, where Craig, this is the moment for me for Craig in all of this season so far, where he's leaning down and he's having a talk with Nick, and he's just like, you were so brave, my little guy. You are Cody. You're so brave. I was like, oh my goodness, he is really fully invested. And we know that he was pretty invested, but he is fully invested. And I think that that's what Ren needed to see as well, that how invested he was. And it brought him and Darren sort of, at least right now, to better ground, where they had a hug. It was like, thank you for being there for me. I'll always be there for you. I'm like, this is all the Craig stuff I really wanted to see pay off. He's put himself through it. And I say it that way because he has put himself through it. He has made so many decisions to be just not that great to himself.
Yeah.
So to see him pull himself out of all of that and end up here is very satisfying.
For me, this is like one of the first times that I can say, without argument, that Craig was my second favorite Cody in a given episode. Don't get me wrong, like the Darren storylines haven't been that great this season, but I've always still had Darren as kind of sort of number 2 behind Pope, because he's had some really good stuff in the past. But it's like, Craig, congratulations. You made it through an episode where I wasn't infuriated at you at some various point. Like, you weren't just like completely, well, I mean, you had that moment of like comfort with you and Ren kind of close to the end of it. And maybe this will get you to at least stop being so terrible to Ren like all of the time. Maybe you guys could get on the same page a little bit more. I mean, we saw you have that nice moment you mentioned with his son. Like, there is a big heart to this guy. He does not know how to get it together a lot of the time. This is a step in the right direction. I just wish that it didn't take, his kid being taken and being put in this like horrible traumatic situation for it to happen.
Sometimes that's what it takes. You have to take the biggest fall to be able to get back out and to really hit that rock bottom, to really have, sometimes you just need something like this to happen. And, who knows, if something like this didn't happen, there may not have been that situation at the end where Ren really saw Craig has pulled himself out of this. He is here for his son no matter what. He is willing to take bullets for his son. He is soft with his son. He is strong with his son. And to have them sit at the couch at the end where they were just, holding hands and she was rubbing his back. I'm like, okay, they as parents, if they don't get together, I'm fine with that. I'm not here to be like, they got to get together. This isn't that type of show.
No.
But for them as parents to reach this point where she really sees him for him past all the craziness, it needed to happen. Or it was always going to be kind of like this, oh, you can see Nick for a couple hours supervised. No, that's got to be done now.
I sure hope so. Okay. We are far into this video. We got to talk about Smurf and Pope.
Do we?
And that's it. Okay, here's the thing.
Listen, we've talked about this before. Smurf weird.
We're going to mention it. We're going to acknowledge that it happened. We're going to say we were very disturbed about it. And we never want to think about it again. And all right, we're moving on.
Listen, we have spoken about this in so many Animal Kingdom videos, and it is an important part of Smurf. She does use this sort of mother then / move into this sort of like touchy, a little too much with her sons, with Baz, with Jay, with anybody that she's able to, which is always why it's been her and Julia are like this, because she can't use any of that on her. And it's always been there. It's even in the opening credits. It's strange.
It's straight.
It's not right.
No, it's really, it feels a lot like this show just constantly wants you to feel uncomfortable about at least something. And I think a lot of it is because, we get really behind a guy like Pope, and we know that Pope has done some terrible things, but we know a lot of them are rooted from Smurf, and it feels like they have an obligatory reminder in their heads every week, no matter what it is, that they have to just remind us of how terrible Smurf is, and that is our reminder for this week, and I hope that I do not have to think about it any more than I have in this video.
No, that's it. That's it till next week.
Okay, well, with that in mind, we didn't have the action of a heist in this episode, but the Pope stuff was really, really good to me. Like the best episode I think we've had for Craig in a while as well. So we're kind of at the halfway point of this final season. Let's just hope we really kind of get the ball moving with some of this stuff with Thompson and everything else from here on out.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. This episode was really good, but the Thompson stuff, I get why it's there and I get why it's happening, but like, as a detective, her showing up again at the date, I was just like, okay, I'm sort of like out on this detective. She's not good at her job. I'm not sure why she's put on this case. Like I get the first, hey, I lost my son. I'm like, oh, okay, that's really smart. She's in there. She's able to take some pictures of the gun that's in the car or whatever. But her showing up again, I'm like, oh, you're blowing it.
Yeah, that was a faux pas, to say the least. You never want Pope to be on to you about anything. Like even something small, and this is something huge, and it's gonna blow up big in the future. But go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss that inevitable conversation later, and we will see you here next time.